Galveston, Texas, the birthplace of Juneteenth, is preparing to raise the roof in a celebration of freedom, faith, gospel music like never before on Sunday, June 8th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. The historic 1894 Grand Opera House is the place to be. So it definitely will come alive with soul-stirring praise as the NIA Culture Center presents the Emancipation Gospel Celebration Concert, a cornerstone event commemorating the 160th anniversary of Juneteenth. Headlining the event, a true gospel powerhouse, the iconic Shirley Caesar, whose 7-decade career has defined the genre. Of course, she's done music as a solo artist as well, in the caravans as well. Also joining her will be the incredible Walls Group. Those that particular family is very entertaining. They bring the power of God with them wherever they sing. So make sure you guys be in the place to be. But today, joining us to talk about this particular event is a spokesperson and the event producer, the one, the only, Mr. Alex Thomas. How you doing, Mr. Thomas?
I'm doing great, Mr. ReShard. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. It's definitely an honor to have you on and talk about this wonderful event that you guys got planned, and I know it's going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing you discuss more about it. But before we get to the actual event, who is Mr. Thomas away from being an event producer and all these other things, amazing things that you do?
Well, as again, my name is Alex Thomas. I am a Mississippi native.
Okay.
I moved to Texas 5 years ago, but my career spans over 30 years in tourism development and music and producing, corporate events, concerts, you name it. And so during that time that I spent in Mississippi, I worked on a lot of cultural projects. One in particular, developing a program called the Mississippi Blues Trail. Had an opportunity to work with a lot of great blues artists. I worked on a lot of steering committees for our Civil Rights Museum, our B.B. King Museum. Served on a lot of different capacities, just from an economic development and tourism development standpoint. But for the last, I say, decade, I had the opportunity of having my own business. I started a company called Blue South Entertainment, where I created some festivals and events. I also worked to help some artists start off their careers. And then when I moved to Galveston, right before the pandemic, moved out here to kind of broaden my horizons as far as an event planner, and started working for a corporate company. And about 3 months after that, COVID happened, things kind of slowed down the industry. And then I started back working, I guess would say, in the early part of 2023. And a good friend of mine that I had known for years welcomed me to come to Galveston to help produce an event in Galveston. Well, needless to say, I ended up going there to be a consultant to help them really develop their African-American product on the island. There's a lot of rich history in Galveston, and we'll kind of dive into that as the conversation goes further. But it reminded me a lot of home, of Mississippi. And I saw the importance of being in Galveston as it relates to the birthplace of Juneteenth. So with that being said, I started out creating a plan to really promote African-American tourism on the island. And then that kind of led to the creation of this event, the Emancipation Gospel Celebration, as an event that is being hosted by the NIA Culture Center. Those were one of the organizations that I had an opportunity to build a very strong relationship with, because I admired the work that they were doing in the community and had done for many, many years. And so we started talking about the event. And then next thing you know, we were planning the event. And here we are 4 years later, bringing in the Queen of Gospel herself. So I would like to say that I am kind of more of a visionary when it comes to cultural tourism. I've always been fascinated with concerts and events and music. So that's something that I admire. That's my passion. I've had an opportunity to work with some amazing artists, everything from R&B to blues to jazz, and most importantly, gospel. I was brought up in the church, brought up going to hear a lot of gospel artists over my years being in Mississippi. And so this has been an honor. I call it a labor of love, so to speak, because now we have an opportunity to work with someone that I've admired for many, many years, but not had an opportunity to produce a concert with her. Same thing with the Walls Group. So I'm truly excited about this show more than anything. Two reasons. One, as you mentioned, this is the 160th anniversary for Juneteenth. We're talking about, years of the emancipation, being able to celebrate our freedom as we know it here, in America. And so I'm grateful for that, but also I'm grateful for the opportunity that we have someone like Shirley Caesar, who has been around, who is a legend, a staple in the gospel community. And to be able to come and perform for us at 86 years of age, she's a pioneer. She is a trailblazer. And she's opened the doors for many, many other female gospel artists. And to be able to have her on this stage, as well as a young group like the Walls Group, family group born right here in Houston, they're going to blaze the stage. We also wanted to incorporate choir this year. So we have the Houston Mass Choir. And just recently, we added an additional artist who is a Galveston native, most known for her R&B work, but she now has a very special gospel track called Blessings. We have none other than Tanya Nolan, who will stage with us as well. So, I'm excited. It's going to be an amazing show, but it's also for a great cause and for a great organization like the Neo Culture Center that does amazing work in the community of Galveston, Texas.
Yes, Miss Nolan's definitely a friend of the program for sure. She's amazing, and for the ones that haven't heard the song, she's incredible. The blessing song has really been, I guess, her coming out when it comes to gospel, I would say, and it's really been touching people all over the world. But if I may ask, how did you get involved with the Culture Center?
Well, as I mentioned, I was brought down as a consultant, and when I came to Galveston, a lot of the people in the community, I got a list of the movers and the shakers in the community. And I was introduced to the executive director by the name of Miss Sue Johnson. Sue has been working with the Neo Culture Center for over 3 decades. She is from Galveston, and she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. She's done a lot of work in the community. So after talking to her, seeing the vision of this organization, and basically they have been around honoring, celebrating, and empowering the brilliance of the Black community's legacy. And that's all about what we stand for when we talk about Juneteenth. Being able to celebrate our freedom and how do we move it forward? How do we empower our youth? And so I started working with her among other community leaders to talk about developing an African-American product. And when we talk about a product, we talk about a cultural product. Galveston is a tourism destination. It is has beaches. It has a port. We have 4 major cruise lines going out right now: Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Disney, Princess, and a lot of people come to Galveston every day to get on a tour bus, but they don't understand the history of where they're walking. They're walking on very special soil. The island is a place that has endured several hurricanes. It's been impacted by the 1900 storm. It's been impacted by other hurricanes after that. But not only that, it's been resilient to rebuild with that same historic fabric that's always been there. There's no other community in the state of the United States that could talk about being the birthplace of Juneteenth. There's no other community that could talk about having one of the first African-American heavyweight boxing champions of the world with Jack Johnson. There's no other community in the state of Texas that could talk about the 4 pillars of sacred spaces. The first 4 African-American churches that originated in the state of Texas all started in Galveston. Baptist, AME, Catholic, and also Episcopal. And so all of those churches are still operating. We honored them last year doing our gospel event. And, you know, they are just a fabric of the community. You have members there that were part of fighting for women's rights. You have members there who fought to get Juneteenth as a national holiday, along with some of our congressmen, leaders, you know, things like that. So it's just a lot of rich history there. And it allowed me to fall into a space that I was very familiar with by working in Mississippi, you know, trying to preserve our history and our culture. But it also allowed me to step out on faith and be creative and think about how can we embrace this and take it another step further. So when we shared this idea with Ms. Johnson and a couple other colleagues in the community. And initially, you know, we were just thinking about having a musical celebration. It wasn't always a gospel celebration. It was more about how do we celebrate Juneteenth, our freedom, on a musical platform. And so when we started thinking about, you know, who would we bring and, you know, how much would it cost from a budgetary standpoint, we found ourselves thinking about, you know, we probably should put together a gospel concert. And we started off our first year with Marvin Sapp.
Amazing.
We came back the second year with Smokey Norfolk, Zacardi Cortez. Third year, we hit them hard with Fred Hammond.
Wow.
And now for the fourth year, you know, we have Pastor Shirley Caesar. So I think it's taking a nice pathway from, you know, the history of, we stood on the shoulders of a lot of our ancestors. And one of the ways that they were able to make it during those tough times of not being emancipated and not being free and working through sharecropping periods of time, civil rights, always fell back to our gospel hymns. It fell back to the church. Once they worked in the fields through the week, they were able to go praise God on Sunday. And be able to thank him for what they had, whether it was a little, or small, whatever. That's where it all started. And so part of this event is taking people back to the original roots, the roots of where we have been able to time after time again, endure as a people. And so I know for myself firsthand that if it had not been for my upbringing in the gospel community and being taught, you know, through the Baptist church, you know, about God and learning about spiritual music, you know, I don't know really how my path would have gone. And so I think this is important. It allows us to be able to pay homage to the people who have come before us, but also to pay homage to the people that we still have with us. And so one of those iconic people is a gospel music Hall of Famer, NAACP award recipient, Stella Award winning, Grammy nominated, Queen of Gospel, and a pastor in North Carolina. So we're happy to have Shirley Caesar.
Yeah, it's incredible to know that she's still going. Seems like she's getting stronger and stronger by the day.
Man.
And I know you mentioned Mississippi. That's where you're from. You know, even the state of Mississippi has a rich culture and music as well. Of course, you got the Mississippi Mass Choir. You know, you got Lee Williams and the Spiritual Keys, Ken Spirituals, Jackson Southern Airs. The list goes on and on.
Yeah,
but so this is a beautiful thing that, you know, you guys were led to, you know, put this together because it's needed, especially for the younger generation that may not have learned, you know, about the emancipation in school, or you know, some families, they don't talk about it, you know, even though it's part of the history. So with you guys putting this on, I think it's a beautiful thing. Just to kind of transition a little bit, how did you get inspired to even become an event promoter or event producer? What inspired that?
Well, when you talk to some of my family members, they say I've been doing this since I was a very small kid. I would sit in the floor and I would have my boom box, man, and I would pretend, you know, I had my action figures and other little gadgets, and I would create like a stage environment, and I would have the music, and I had the figurines portraying that they were the artists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I didn't even think about it. And it was about, I would say probably about 7 years ago, my cousin, who is more like a brother to me, we were backstage at one of my concerts that I produced. And he actually said, man, you know, how does it feel to be doing something that you've always wanted to do? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, man, I remember when we were little, he said, you would sit down in the floor with the music and you would be acting like you was giving a concert. And honestly, bro, I didn't even, you know, I guess sometimes when you hear people, and I know you hear athletes talk about it, you hear actors, actresses, people talk about it, that's something that's God-given.
Yes, indeed.
It's a passion of mine, but it's also a God-given talent that I can walk into an empty space and I can envision what I want to happen. And then I take the time and I go through the proper steps to make it happen. And so this is something that I've done. I've done everything from a small, private, personal event to a 5-stage festival with acts, you know, people that I've always admired listening to as a child, the Isley Brothers.
Wow.
You know, listening to Bob Marley. I wasn't around to actually see him live, but I got a chance to work with his son, Ziggy Marley. Anthony Hamilton's, the Fantasias, the Chaka Khans, you know, the list goes on, man. I've been blessed and I don't take it for granted. And now even on a gospel stage, man, like I said, I have always admired Shirley Caesar. I mean, she was just my mom. I'm actually flying my mom in from Mississippi so she could attend the show. But even more excited, I've never had the opportunity to work with the Walls Group. But about 10 years ago, my daughters, they exposed me to the Walls Group. Both of my daughters are praise dancers at our church back in Mississippi. And so we were giving my father a 70th birthday celebration. And my youngest daughter, who was 6 at the time, said, Dad, we want to do a dance. I said, okay, you know, you can do the dance. And so they provided me the song, had never heard the song, and it was Perfect People by the Walls Group.
Great song.
The dance, and the family just really enjoyed it and embraced it. And since then, I've been a fan of their music. And so with that being said, man, it allowed me to say, wow, you know, this is another group that I want to bring this year. The whole point of having the Houston Mass Choir, like I said, I grew up listening to quartets. I grew up listening to choirs, you know, Mississippi Mass Choir, as you mentioned. And I thought it would only be befitting, you know, just beneficial to bring in like one of Houston's own, Houston Mass Choir. And so we're excited about having them on. And then just recently we were talking, like I said, I've known Tanya from an R&B standpoint and working with good friend Raheem Devon, you know, and we were all together not too long ago. Raheem performed here in Houston. Tanya was there and got a chance to visit with both of them. And so I was told, like, you know, Tanya has a new gospel single out. And, you know, she's from Galveston. I was like, oh yeah, I know she's from Galveston, but I wasn't aware about the gospel single. And so listen to Blessings, man, and I've been listening to it probably every day since. I actually had it posted on my page yesterday. So I think overall, this particular show, not just because it's the 160th anniversary, but just because it has so much impact from an iconic legend to having a young group, which most of our young adults can appeal to, the Walls Group. But then who cannot, you know, think about the choir? I mean, most of your young folk participate in church choirs, and when they go to church, you know, either they're members of the choir, they're members of the usher board, things like that. So having a good choir be a part of the event, and then having somebody who's from Galveston, who's part of the show, it just overall is an amazing opportunity for us.
Yes, sir. So the next one I have for you today, is it a ticketed event or is it free to the public?
No, it's a ticketed event. And one reason why it's a ticketed event, because the Neoculture Center does a lot of programs throughout the year. You know, they honor each year Champions of Freedom during the gospel concert. That's an award we give out to people who have been pioneers and champions of the emancipation process, people who have fought to really make sure that we are aware and that we have the opportunities that we have been afforded. The other thing is they do several Juneteenth events throughout the year, or during the period of celebrating Juneteenth. They do an empowerment for the youth through their Freedom School program.
Yes.
They actually, the culture center is housed in an art gallery. So they exhibit works from the African American community throughout the year. You can go there, you can learn about the artwork, you can learn about the history. We have lecture series, and then they do collaborations. They collaborated with the Juneteenth Legacy Project, and in downtown Galveston, you have a beautiful mural which illustrates Juneteenth, the history of Juneteenth. And with that, people can walk up with their smartphone. They can scan a part of that mural, and on that mural, you have a augmented reality video that will pop up on your phone, that will talk about that particular portion of the mural. So all of these things are done and championed by the Nia Culture Center. So with that, the event is tickets start at $35. They go as far as $85, and those $85 are, right down in front where you can just about touch, Shirley Caesar's feet, or either you can sit in the box seats that are to the left or the right of the orchestra. Beautiful building. The Grand 1894 Opera House is also a very iconic building in Galveston, around for years. We've done those previous 3 shows there, and there's not a bad seat in the house. You have the orchestra floor, you have the mezzanine level, and then you have the 3rd level, and you can see the stage from any seat in the house, and it's amazing. And so we're excited about that. But yeah, tickets start at $35. They can be purchased at thegrand.com. That is the website for the 1894 Opera House. They can also go to the Nia Cultural Center website if they want to find more information about the Nia Cultural Center. That website is niacultural.org. They can see all the great programs that Nia Cultural Center does throughout the year. They can donate to the Nia Cultural Center if they want to, or if they just want to come down and visit and tour the gallery. They can find information on the operation hours as well.
And then, of course, before we go, because I already know somebody's going to ask, is there going to be a meet and greet?
Well, there's a special meet and greet for the VIPs and the sponsors that we're doing on Saturday for Shirley Caesar. She's coming in a day early, and we're excited about that. There's also a special meet and greet for the sponsors and board members for the Walls Group. So there's not a meet and greet that's open to the public, just because, artists are very special individuals. It takes a lot to maintain their voice. It takes a lot to prepare for the show. So we try to be very respectful of that. We don't require too much of their time. In the many years that I produce concerts and events, we've had to limit how those meet and greet works. And so with this particular one, we have, like I said, the Queen of Gospel. She's 86 years old. So we want her to be ready to take on the stage. So we're fortunate that we'll have a special event with her on Saturday. That'll be closed, just for our VIPs and sponsors, and then with the Walls Group. But they're going to be in for a treat. They may not get an opportunity to meet them one-on-one, but if they have a seat in the building, they're going to leave there with a memory that, is going to be unbelievable. Not only because we're celebrating Juneteenth, but you're celebrating Juneteenth in the birthplace where it all happened. And so not many people will be able to say that. Not many people are going to be able to say, I had an opportunity to see Shirley Caesar in the place on the island where Juneteenth actually started.
And then, of course, before we go, after this particular event is over, do you have any other events in the near future?
Well, I'll talk about Galveston as a whole. So for the whole month of June, there's so many events that are going on in Galveston. And the Nia Culture Center hosts several events, but a lot of those events can be found on the website. I actually have my shirt on. I don't know if you can see it, but it's my Juneteenth birthplace t-shirt. And this shirt, we have a website, that is called the JuneteenthBirthplace.com. And they can go to that website, they click on that link, and any of the events that are happening in Galveston from June 1st up through the beginning of July, they will see everything from the parade, the picnic, the Juneteenth banquets that's hosted by Old Central Cultural Center, which was the first African-American high school in the state of Texas. There'll be events happening at Reedy Chapel, which was the first AME church in the state of Texas. They do a lot of great events throughout the Juneteenth celebration. Avenue L, the First Baptist Church in the state of Texas, they'll have, worship service there. It'll be everything from plays to concerts by the Galveston Symphony Orchestra. They can go to that website, and it's JuneteenthBirthplace.com, and they can find out more information there. But I would just encourage people to follow the Neocultural Center on all social media platforms. It's Neocultural Center. It's on Facebook, Neocultural on Instagram, and on the website, neoculturalcenter.org. It's going to be a lot of events on there throughout the year. We have a calendar, and I'll be continuing to work with them, not just for this event, but for many events. And so I would encourage people to just stay in tune, find ways to support, find ways to learn about our history. It's our history. And we want to empower our people. We want to be able to celebrate with our people. But not only that, we want to continue to honor the people who come before us. And so that's what the Neocultural Center is all about.
Yes, sir. So again, guys, we're joined by Mr. Alex Thomas. He's a part of the Neocultural Center, and he's helping bring this wonderful event to Galveston, Texas. So again, Sunday, June 8th, 2025 at 4 p.m. is the concert. As you mentioned, we're going to have the legendary Pastor Shirley Season, Houston Mass Choir, Miss Tanya Nolan, the Walls Group. It's going to be amazing. So, guys, don't wait till the last minute. Get those tickets. Go ahead and make sure it sells out tomorrow. Don't wait. And don't be. I wish I would have went. Don't be a part of that crowd. So get out there and support. And keep the history, moving forward, teach history, learn the history, do all those wonderful things, and just support everything this brother is doing. He's trying to do some amazing things, and when you see his name on the flyer, make sure you go out and support him. So guys, keep it locked here on the ReShard Show. Coming up, we have some more great music right about now.